Gary, what a beautiful place to know one of my drum heroes and one of the greatest in the world, really. But it's not your first time here in Italy, tonight with Tiziano Ferro. San Siro, best stadium in the world?
It's the most incredible stadium in the world, yes. Yeah.
When did you start working here in Italy?
Well, my first trip to Italy was, I think, 1992.
Wow.
With Chick Corea's acoustic quartet. And the very first show I remember was in Reggio Emilia. We have this promoter friend named Patrizio Chiozza, he still is, but he's an agent that brings American jazz artists to Italy.
Yeah.
So with Chick's band, I spent 2 weeks playing all kinds of beautiful theaters from Reggio Emilia and Rome, Milan, all the way to Palermo. That was my first trip to Palermo.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I started traveling in Italy in the early 90s and then continued on with Patrizio, who brought us with the great late Bob Berg, and I was in his band as well. So we did a lot of work in Italy, and we also worked throughout all of Europe with an Italian promoter. So I learned very early on that this was my favorite country in the world.
We can say that you are half Italian.
I wish.
And when did you start working with Italian artists like Eros, like Cremonini, Tiziano?
With Eros, I start in 2009. And he came to see me play at the Blue Note Milan with Mike Landau. Okay. And Mike had played on his records, and he saw the trio, and he's like, I want you guys to do my tour. And this was, 2009, 2010. And that was my first time working for an Italian artist, completely immersed in Italian music, okay? So it was a different experience because, when you travel with all-American bands and all-American musicians, we have our sound and we have our interpretation of music. Learning to play with an Italian artist is not so simple because there's many things that are very important. And it's the melody and the lyrics and the story and the emotion behind the story. So if you play the music from a complete musician's perspective, sometimes that doesn't suit the music correctly, And what helped me was to transcribe all the stories into English.
Okay, so understand the lyrics.
It's super important, especially one of my favorite lyricists in Italian music is Cesare. His stories are unbelievably beautiful. And if you don't understand the meaning of the song, I think that the emotion that transfers to the public is misinterpreted. Exactly. He has many songs that are funny, many songs that are introspective, many songs that are very romantic, and somewhat sad.
Yeah.
So sometimes you need to match your energy to the story. And I think that was my biggest lesson in playing music here and not America. Not to say that it's not the same in America, but the audience reaction, I can notice it when, if I play the music correctly, I see the reaction in the crowd. And that's what's important, especially on a job like this, with Tiziano, his story and his difficulties in his life needs to be translated to the audience. They are here to relive these stories. And, sure, we all can play our instruments, but that's not so important. It's the emotion and spirit that you put into the music that needs to be there. You can't overplay, you can't underplay, but you have to be kind of accurate on an emotional level.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Wow. I'm listening, man.
Well, vocal music is a difficult thing, and certain rock and roll drummers were amazing at connecting with a vocal, like Keith Moon. Right?
Yeah.
If you listen to The Who, everything is the vocal, and when the vocal is not there, he's going crazy. But when the vocal happens, it's almost like a old style big band drummer. Like, he's always with the vocal, nothing else. But it's incredible, actually. You know, and that's an interesting perspective. You know, certain people, they look at me like I'm crazy. But if you listen to Keith Moon, it's all around the vocal.
Wow.
You know, everything that's so frantic and crazy.
Like in jazz music, when you have the space, you can play.
Exactly.
Not.
You know,
You come from a jazz background, so creativity and improvisation are very important for your playing.
Sure.
How do you manage your playing when you are working with an artist or with a musical director that asks you to play in a different way would play? Does it happen?
Sure. Happens all the time.
All the time.
But my idea with this is that if you enjoy different styles of music, you will sound authentic, okay? I know many jazz drummers that are just jazz drummers, and that's what they do. If you put them in a situation like this, or heavy rock and roll or something, they might be able to do it, but the spirit isn't there, okay? I enjoy lots of different music. So it makes it easy for me to be able to take direction, okay? Also, well, this musical director, Mr. Luca Scarpa, is a very, very good friend of mine. So whatever he tells me, I do. You know, I love Luca. He's an incredible musician, but he's also a wonderful person, and it makes it very easy. I mean, we have a good line of communication, you know, always.
You are very humble saying that because you are one of the greatest. I mean, and not always American drummers here in Italy played, in my opinion, in the right way for the artist. So this means that you are very humble to play music. It's not something that probably everyone can do.
Well, I appreciate that.
Not technically, I mean,
a technique,
like a concept.
Exactly. The thing for me is that if you are open to a new experience, the rewards you get in life are priceless, right? With my experience now, working for Italian artists for 14, almost 15 years, I have two lives. I have a life in California, and I have a life here. That's incredible. I feel the same here as I do in California. There's no difference. I have my friends, my family, my favorite restaurants, my favorite cities, my favorite beaches, my favorite wines, my favorite grappas.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I feel very lucky, you know? And if you are open to the experience and able to let your own self-perception step aside, you can learn something new. And a lot of the music here, and this is my opinion, but a lot of the music here has more harmony, more chords, more melody, more key changes, and more moods. Right now in America, in terms of pop music, it almost sounds like the same 5 songs. It's amazing. And I still think that the history of Italy, with the opera and the classical composers and the singers and all of these things, the Italian culture wants a song and it wants a melody.
Right.
You know?
Do you play I know you play other instruments, piano, probably the best.
More bass than piano.
More bass than piano.
Yeah.
Is it helpful to play either the drums?
Absolutely. Okay, I got a funny story for you. So, 20 years ago, I went to this club with friends of mine that are playing, and the bass player, who's a good friend of mine, says, "Hey, why don't you come up and play a David Sanborn song? You know, I know you know this one." Oh, sure. I come up and play, and the drummer, I will not say who it is. He's great, but he's all over the place, playing all kinds of crazy drumming, and I'm just trying to play bass. very aggravating. Okay, but then I think to myself, I do the same thing. No more, huh?
Lesson.
Yeah. Immediate.
You should play with drummers. You know many. Very good.
They won't listen to me anyway. But it's an interesting perspective to play another instrument. Because, it's funny. The drumming community, we're like a brotherhood, And sometimes I think that it's almost too much. When I say to my some students when I teach, I say to them, don't talk to your other drummers. Talk to the saxophone player, talk to the guitar player, talk to the bass player. What do they like in a drummer? That's how you get more information, more musicality, more of a chance to give them what they want. It's a practical way of getting more music, getting more opportunities to play more music. You have to do what they want. Right now our culture is kind of almost athletic, right? All these great young drummers got facility. It's incredible.
Great technique nowadays.
Great technique, but the music is more important. And I think that right now, in the history of drumming, we've kind of lost a little bit, not all of it, but we've lost a little bit of musicality. And the other thing that I see, and this is just my opinion, but with YouTube and the internet, it seems like many people copy each other, right?
Okay.
I hear a lot of drummers that have the same sound. They tune the drums exactly the same way, the same cymbals, the same licks, everything's the same.
Okay.
So what makes you different than that guy, right? If everybody is very similar, we are interchangeable.
Okay. You can make really the difference, is what you mean. Okay, I understand.
It's just my opinion, but, sometimes I can hear certain musicians and tell immediately who they are, okay? And sometimes with a blindfold test with some of the newer guys, they all sound incredible, but the drums sound the same, the cymbals are the same. It's almost difficult to pick them out of a lineup, and that makes me a little sad.
This is a very good advice for new generations.
If they listen, I think in the modern world, I'm only 53 years old, but when I was a young musician, I would always go to the older guys and seek advice or want to hear what they have to say. And I think that in modern music now, there's a division between generations. I don't see a lot of multi-generation bands anymore. It's either one generation, they stick together, and it's a little sad. When I was playing with Chick Corea, I was 23, John Patitucci was 33, Bob Berg was 43, and Chick was 53. So it was 10 years apart, And it's not so much like that. Maybe Herbie Hancock still has a multi-generational band from different eras, when you look at the history of Miles Davis's groups, he found people from every age, angle, influence, and I don't know why that isn't as prevalent in today's world. I don't know.
I'm curious about the way you play when you are in a big venue like this. Do you change your way of playing? I mean, dynamics,
yes.
Or missing some ghost notes because you can't
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. To translate your playing to 55,000 people with these huge speakers, right? Anything that's very, very busy doesn't translate. You don't hear it, Especially we have a bigger band. We have the Pro Tools. We have drum loops. So sometimes you need to be careful on how you translate. My playing is very different in this setting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's more simple. every note, I focus on the intention, you know? And I mean, it's very difficult to explain, but I feel like sometimes when I do these tours, I lose some technique, but I gain others, okay? Playing to a big crowd is different, and it's all emotion. Your ability to be prolific as a soloist, with the chops, it doesn't mean anything.
You know, do you play both traditional and match grip? And how
Yes.
do you play tonight?
Match. Yeah. Many years ago, I break this thumb, so I could play jazz this way, which I prefer. But when I have to play loud,
Do you prefer using traditional grip because you are playing jazz music, or
The sound.
in general?
the sound, it sounds better.
Sounds better.
It does. When I record and I hear a playback, I'll be like, take two. The snare drum sounds better.
Ah,
Why? I'm playing this way.
do you think it's something personal for you, or it's a rule? Because many drummers change their,
You know,
great drummers change their technique
Okay.
over years for injuries and stuff like that.
sure. But Keith Jarrett, one of the greatest musicians that ever lived, does not like drummers that play match grip.
Really?
He can hear it. He can hear the difference. So, if Keith Jarrett says it sounds better, it sounds better.
Exactly. Do you change the tuning
Oh, yeah.
as well?
Oh, yeah. Everything is down. It's low. It's wide open. These drums are
22 or 20?
22.
22.
22 by 14, all conventional, standard. 13 by 9, 14, 14, 16, 16, 6.5.
Is this a Brooklyn
Broadcaster.
broadcast?
Yes. I like the Broadcaster. I like these hoops, the old style stick chopper. You know, I have many old Gretsch drums, like from the 70s, 80s, 60s, you know, but I like the Broadcaster.
Yeah.
They're good for, they sound great for jazz, but for me, like, they're just bigger. They sound deeper, you know?
Just a few electronics?
Yeah, I use, like, there's some songs that I can't do with real drums. That doesn't work,
absolutely.
you know? So I have snare drum samples and one electronic kick drum down there,
Yeah.
you know? And a little trigger here and there. Not for everything. I think 10 songs, electronic and trigger, the rest acoustic,
Acoustic.
you know? But we have Marco Manforte.
I know, Mark.
He's great, man. Yeah,
great.
he's incredible. So I trust him. Whatever he tells me to
People
do.
like you, it's easy.
With people like him, it's easy. He's good. He's very, very good.
Gary, thank you very much.
Thank you, brother.
Been honor to be here with you, really.
I feel the same.
Enjoy the gig tonight.
Yes.
In the best city in the world.
Best place ever. San Siro. Viva Italia. Tutta la vita.
Allora raccontami tutto.
Ma in questa situazione niente di estremamente, come dire, particolare, se non l'escursione termica.
Ah, ok.
Quella mi fa impazzire perché,
Per l'intonazione.
Madonna ragazzi.
Il kit mi ha già detto Gary è abbastanza standard.
Sì,
Lui che richiesta sull'accordatura in particolare?
ma niente di speciale, gli piacciono i tamburi risonanti, logicamente, mi piacciono che i tamburi devono suonare e niente
Carrellata qua dietro,
di particolare.
Vediamo un po' di elettronica. Vabbè, il pedale ormai è diventato uno standard, il pedale elettronico abbastanza nei kit che vedo un po' dappertutto nel pop.
Sì,
Poi abbiamo un altro pad di qua a sinistra.
abbiamo un altro paddino,
questa è
abbiamo
una sposta.
l'SPD SX che gestisce i campioni di cassa e rullo.
Sì,
Rullo attraverso il paddino
ok. Un mixer
per gli ascolti,
della vecchia, questa
alla vecchia, certo che sì,
là dietro.
pedale spero, abbiamo tutto spare di tutto, speriamo che non serva, come si suol dire nel nostro
Tocchiamo ferro.
tocchiamo ferro.
È proprio il caso di dirlo.
Questo ragazzi
numero uno, my favorite tech ever.
You are number one,
No.
I'm really sure.
Without Felix, I'm nothing.
Non è vero, non diciamo sciocchezze.
Allora, Gary mi ha
grandi.
spiegato che questa non è una versione custom della
Purtroppo no, questa è la versione custom di questo tour, perché abbiamo i fuochi d'artificio che purtroppo ci regalano queste perle, ecco, sul...
Beh, potrebbe sembrare una versione...
Certo, invece
invece non
non lo è, infatti.